Rob Dibble Show with Ben Darnell in your afternoon drive. I'll take the heat on this. I was supposed to remind him he was coming on.
Ah, damn.
You know how relievers are, man. We got to get reminded to do stuff.
Gotta have your setup, man.
I just texted him like 5 minutes ago, so as soon as he gets that,
where's your setup?
I'm sure he will. I'm the setup guy. I'm a better setup guy than the closer. He was the better closer. But we'll try to get Jonathan on as soon as possible. But getting back to the World Series, let's talk about Shohei. He could be the wild card and come out of the bullpen, like you said, because they have such a shortage, a lot of injuries. When I just go over guys that are injured, Joe Kelly jumps out quickly on me, and Vesia is another guy that jumps out for me on these guys. Joe Kelly has been a great postseason performer, great pitcher out of bullpens for many, many years, going back to the Red Sox, for the Dodgers. He's got a couple of championship rings, but this Vesia kid, this kid was the difference maker in the Padres series, pitched so much that he couldn't pitch in the NLCS. So, I kind of feel bad. I hope that kid comes back and he's able to pitch in the World Series. Right now, I mean, you've got a lot of injuries that are out there. And, some of them, like we said, Nestor Cortez is one big one. LeMahieu, he's been on the 10-day IL. Ian Hamilton is another guy that's been out. So Alex Vesia, Freeman's day-to-day. Some of these other guys are day-to-day. Gavin Lux is another guy that's day-to-day. So we'll see who makes the actual roster and who's going to be playing in this series. But the one thing that changed over the years, you can get injured in the middle of a series, and as long as you're on the 20 or the 40-man roster and you were eligible to play, I think it's August 31st, you have to be on that roster. You can switch places and switch that injured player out and throw back somebody into the mix instead of being short a player.
I think Michael Kopech's going to get leaned on a little bit here in this series more than he was in the Mets series.
He's opened. He's been a bridge. He can close. Here's the thing about Kopech. Just throw it over the plate. Don't overthink. I think some of these guys that throw 100, it's as much them just trying to gas it by you as locate. The thing that made us really good in our day was we were able to locate heat. Yeah. And if it was 93 with movement, all right, that's what I got to command today. If it's 95 and straight, all right, I better put it 6 inches off the plate or I'm going to get lit up. I mean, it's just you have to know your limitations. That's your job as a player. And I think some of these other guys, that's why I like Freddie Freeman. So when you're hurt, this is another thing when you're injured, maybe a leg injury or something like that, your mechanics on hitting or pitching actually get a little bit better because you have a little bit more thought process on favoring that injured part. And now you're like, okay, I got to put a little bit more weight on the other leg. And I'm talking about Freddie Freeman now because I can't put a lot of pressure on that right ankle. And other guys, maybe they hurt the left leg and they're a right-handed hitter, and maybe it's the left hammy. So I just think that a lot of these guys, even pitch, when I was ill, when I didn't feel well, when I had like a cold or a migraine or something like that, I recall even going back to my high school days, go behind the dugout, throw up, come back and play a good ball game because my mind was on a different part of me. It wasn't on the hitter. It wasn't on the maybe magnitude of the game. It was, my stomach. I'm throwing up. I'm just trying to stay hydrated. I have the chills. Your head kind of, is going elsewhere, but your body, the adrenaline takes over, and you just become a different animal.
Well, let me tell my Evan Phillips story because I'm just looking at all these pictures and I see Evan's name. It's just I'm so happy for the guy, but it's just an amazement that he is in the position he is because I know this kid since he was from high school. He was drafted by I think either the Royals or the Yankees out of high school. He elected to go to college, and this is my time when I was in North Carolina at UNCW. So Evan comes to us at UNCW as really a phenom high school kid, and we had a great team. I think they started the year top 25. They had Friday, they had Saturday already slotted. They made freshman Evan Phillips the Sunday starter, which is kind of unheard of for a top 25 baseball program in college. Dominated his freshman year. It's like, man, this kid's going places, probably going to be penciled in as Saturday, maybe even Friday starter his sophomore year. Sophomore year, nothing like he was his freshman year. In fact, like he was a shell of himself. Now, I don't know what was going on with Evan personally, but he just could not get anyone out, could not throw a strike his whole sophomore year. Junior year, much of the same. Just this dude was just a wash compared to what he was when he was an 18-year-old. End of his junior year, UNCW found themselves in the LSU Regional. They had already beaten Tulane in like an 18-inning game. Now they face the LSU Tigers at their spot. We've used all our pitchers already in that extra inning game. Coach brought Evan just because, he's on the team. Maybe we'll use his arm. Well, we brought him. We're paying for his hotel room. Let's let him start against LSU. He threw 3 gem of an innings in front of a bunch of scouts that drooled over his performance against that. I think they were number 3 in the nation at the time, LSU. Now, they lost the game, UNCW that is, but Evan's performance in those 3 innings turned so many heads that he got drafted in the top 5 rounds of the next draft that same year. I think it was that weekend he gets drafted. Goes to single A, becomes a single A all-star in that same summer, and then just basically works his way up to where he is now 6 years later.
It wasn't easy. He got to the big leagues with the Braves, 4 games. Then he's with the Orioles the same year. Then he goes and stays with the Orioles for a couple of years, 39 appearances there.
Thought he would have gave it up right there. That's where I thought he was done.
Tampa Bay gets 1 appearance, and then he finds a home with the Dodgers, though.
Yeah.
Really, really well starting in 2022. 64 games out of the bullpen, 7-3, 1.1 ERA, which is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
And more than a strikeout per inning. Next year was last year, 62 appearances, a 2 ERA. And that's not easy in today's game. Because if you give up 4 runs in one game, it's going to take you a month to get your earned run average down. So this guy essentially, and here's the key though: strike command, location command. 15 walks, 77 strikeouts the first year with the Dodgers, 13-66, and then 17-63. So you can count on this cat. 5-1 this year. ERA, like I said, not as big a thing because he probably had like 1 bad outing where he gave up a bunch of runs, 22 earnings this year in 54 innings because they limited his workload, probably knowing, and I don't know if he was injured at one point during the season, but 61 appearances, a 3.6 ERA. But here's what I look at. 54 innings pitched, 63 strikeouts, and 17 walks. That's phenomenal. And so this guy, you can count on him to come in, give you a couple innings, but he's going to throw strikes. And on the other side, if I look at Kopech's going to come in, and we're going to roll the dice. And we're going to be like, okay, he might throw 98, but we don't know where it's going. So in a crunch time, you're going to go with Phillips. You're going to be like, I trust this guy to get me 2 outs. So the Vesia injury, because he was so trustworthy with the Padres, you know that they're doing everything humanly possible with the doctors and trainers to get Vesia on this roster. He's left-handed. It helps you going lefty-righty. Is Papelbon there? Or you didn't get him? Okay. We'll try to get him maybe next hour. But when you're trying to build a postseason roster, remember now, with the new Manfred rules, the guy's got to stick for 3 outs. So bringing a guy in, let's just say, you don't want to have Vesia come in, go after Gleyber Torres, Juan Soto, and Aaron Judge, because then you've got 2 out of the 3 guys are right-handed power guys. So you're going to want an Evan Phillips or someone like that. So those are the kind of matchups you're looking for. That's the kind of 8 guys you're looking for out of the bullpen. But definitely, Phillips, this guy, he definitely made his mud and bones with the Dodgers in the last 3 seasons.
10 years ago, 2014, I thought he was done with the sport. And that just goes to show you, man. You stick with it. You keep doing the right things. You find yourself in the World Series with some big-time pitches ahead of you. And I think, too, just thinking of Evan and thinking of his baseball story, that a lot of this stuff doesn't exist if it's not played the way it's played. Like this one-inning stuff. I said they're going to lean on Kopech for an inning a game, right, not like 4 or 5 innings. And same with Evan, and same with all these guys. It's an inning at a time now. So you're going to need a stable of guys, and you're not going to find a stable of all-stars. You're going to find a stable of B+, C- guys, right, that you got to make happen for 3 outs.
He's a pitcher's pitcher. He's 30 years old, 187 appearances with the Dodgers the last 3 years. That's spectacular, dude. It's as hard as I ever had to work. I think a couple years I had over 70 appearances. But, and here's the thing, too. We pitched 100 innings back in the day. He's still getting in the mid-60s. This year, he probably didn't pitch as well. He only had 55 innings.
Yeah.
It's not easy to sit. It's not easy to just get your work in. I was a big guy that would throw my bullpens after games. I hated they'd be like, well, you haven't pitched in 2 days. You want to throw a bullpen before the game? Why? I'm not going to gas myself in the bullpen even if I throw 20, 30 pitches. Now you want me up in the 7th or 8th inning, and I'm tired. You don't want to have to do that. So it's never – I remember Trevor Hoffman at the end of his Hall of Fame career, because his shoulder was so bad, he would never throw before a game. He would long toss, shut it down, pitch, not pitch, and maybe go a couple days, and he'd throw a light bullpen after the game. And that was it. That was all he would risk, because he knew, I'm running out of throws in this arm. I don't have a lot left in the tank.
Right.
And I'm sure as hell not going to throw like a 4 o'clock bullpen, and then you want me to pitch 6 hours later at 10 o'clock to win a ball game.
It's going to be a tough balance, man. I think this is where the Roberts and Boone
this is where
matchup
the games are won and lost.
Exactly.
Last 9 outs, I would say now 12 to 15 outs, the way they've been managing, watching the postseason. Boone and Roberts from the 5th inning on, the last 12 outs of every game now, they're looking into the bullpen. They're not going like, well, we're going to try to get another inning out of Cole. Let's get another inning out of Rodon, out of Yamamoto. Let's see if we could, squeeze another inning. They're not going to do that anymore. Where, 34 years ago when I was in the postseason, it's like, no problem. We'll let righties, lefties just sit out there in the bullpen and wait to bring him in. Now they don't wait anymore, and it's a lot different story.
And it is what they're judged on, and I see the judgment go the wrong way more often when you leave the guy in than when you try to replace him, because you can explain away the replacement, you can explain away the strategy, even if it doesn't go your way.
That's a great point, because now there's so many press conferences.
Yeah.
It's more answering to the critics
Correct.
than it is just winning a ball game. And to me, that's a horrible way to manage. That's a terrible way to manage, because if you're sitting there thinking, you know what, and God, who was the Red Sox manager that got fired after he left Pedro out there?
Grady Little, is that right?
Grady Little. So Grady Little back in the day, in a playoff matchup. Now, Pedro's making $17 million annually, and that was big money back when Pedro was pitching.
Number one, I think.
Probably the most any closer was making back then was probably $3 to $5 million. Setup guys making half that, middle guys making half of the closer money. Grady Little was asked later after the game, well, why did you leave him out there? Because that's the best pitcher I had available. Not the dude down the bullpen. This guy making $17 million annually. This future Hall of Famer. So you as a reporter or a fan wanted me to pull Pedro and bring in, and at the time it was Tim Wakefield. Tim Wakefield was the hot arm out of the Red Sox bullpen, and I'll never forget watching this live. And they're discussing this. I can't believe he's leaving Pedro out there. I'm like, I can't believe he's not leaving Pedro out there. What are you, nuts? You're going to bring in the knuckleballer for Pedro Martinez. So that was 25 years ago.
Right.
So now fast forward to today. Now Garrett Cole he can't talk Boone out of it. Boone's already got the analytics to walk out there and go, listen, your third time through the lineup says XYZ, and I got to pull you, or I'm going to get in so much trouble after this game, and that's terrible.
Well, there is no argument. I mean, even Cole knows those numbers and accepts those numbers and leans on those numbers for his training and what he's doing and his approach every single at-bat. So how can he do that with his pregame and everything surrounding those numbers, and then you, as the skip, come out and tell me those numbers? I can't argue with it at this point. It's become so analytic-based, man. That move is all about the numbers and less about the gut, like it used to be.
Yeah, and that move now has gone from the 7th inning or possibly into the 6th inning to the 5th inning.
5, 6, 7, 8,
where
9.
you might have 4 1/3 innings as your starter. You could be making $35 million annually. That doesn't matter. At this point now, baseball is like Analytics 101. Got to pull you. Can't get through the lineup the third time. I'm not getting fired. I mean, you go back to Blake Snell, Rich Hill.
That's all I think about.
The third time through it. Blake Snell and Rich Hill. I'll never forget those guys. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll do the first dibs question of the day. Coming up next hour, though, we've got someone on, Rachel, to talk about the Mohegan Sun Brewfest. You're going to want to hear all this stuff. Got a great Brewfest for you coming up this weekend.